You're treating the symptom, not what's killing him. The voice was small, almost swallowed by the frantic beeping of machines, but it cut through the room like a crack in glass. For a moment, no one moved. Not the doctors in crisp white coats. Not the billionaire standing frozen at the foot of the bed. Not even the machines seemed to breathe. Ethan Hayes had stopped breathing for 12 seconds. 12 seconds that stretched into something endless, something heavy, something no amount of money could shorten. The penthouse, 40 floors above Manhattan, had been transformed into a temporary ICU, its floor-to-ceiling glass windows reflecting flashing monitors and the cold blue glow of medical equipment flown in overnight. This wasn't just a home. It was a fortress of wealth, wrapped in marble and silence. And yet, in this moment, it felt fragile, powerless. "We're losing him," Dr. Rebecca Sloan said, her voice tight, controlled, but cracking at the edges. She adjusted the four-line with precise movements, her hands steady in a way that only years of authority could teach. Around her, four other specialists moved quickly, exchanging clipped instructions, their words sharp and efficient, like instruments in a high-stakes performance. They had degrees from the best schools. They had saved lives that made headlines. But right now, none of that mattered, because nothing they were doing was working. Jonathan Hayes stood just a few feet away, his tailored suit still perfectly pressed, his silver watch catching the light with every subtle movement of his wrist. He looked like a man who controlled everything. Markets, companies, futures. But his eyes betrayed him. They were fixed on his son, wide, searching, helpless. "Do whatever it takes," he said, his voice low but commanding, the kind of voice that usually moved mountains. But this time, it didn't move anything. Because even here, in a room worth more than most hospitals, control was slipping through his fingers. In the far corner, barely visible against the polished stone walls, sat a small girl. Lily Carter, 10 years old. Blonde hair tied back with a fading blue ribbon. A simple dress, clean but worn from too many washes. She sat perfectly still, her hands wrapped tightly around a small, leather-bound notebook. She wasn't supposed to be here. Her mother had whispered it twice before the chaos began. "Stay quiet. Stay invisible." And Lily had listened. She always did. She knew the rules of places like this. Children like her didn't speak. They didn't interrupt. They didn't exist. But her eyes missed nothing. She watched the monitors. The numbers rising, falling. She watched Ethan's chest, the rhythm not matching what the machines were saying. She watched the doctors, their movements confident, but wrong. Something didn't fit. Something didn't line up. A detail so small it slipped through the cracks of expertise. Her fingers tightened around the notebook. The worn edges pressed into her skin. A memory flickered. A quiet voice from long ago. "Don't just look," her grandfather had told her, his voice rough but steady. "See, the truth is always there. People just don't know where to look." Lily swallowed. Her heart beat faster now, loud in her ears, almost as loud as the machines. She shifted slightly in her chair, her gaze locking onto Ethan again. His lips, the faint tint, not quite right. His breathing, too shallow, too uneven. And then she saw it. A tiny detail, something no one had said out loud, something no one had even noticed. Her breath caught. The room felt smaller, heavier. She wasn't supposed to speak. She knew that. But the numbers on the monitor dropped again. A sharp, urgent sound filled the air. "Increase the dosage," one doctor said quickly. "We're stabilizing him," another added, though the doubt in his voice betrayed the words. Lily's chest tightened. No, that wasn't it. They were chasing the wrong thing. Treating what they could see, not what was actually happening. Her fingers trembled. Just a little. She looked at her mother across the room, moving quickly with a tray, her face tight with worry, her eyes silently pleading. "Stay quiet. Stay invisible." Lily looked back at Ethan. 12 seconds without breath. And counting. Her heart made the decision before her fear could stop it. She stood up. The movement was small, almost unnoticed. Almost. And then she spoke. "You're treating the symptom, not what's killing him." Silence fell like a curtain. Heavy. Sudden. Absolute. For a heartbeat, no one understood what they had just heard. Then the room turned. Slowly at first, then all at once. 5 doctors. 1 billionaire. Every pair of eyes landed on the small girl standing near the wall, as if she had broken some invisible rule that could not be repaired. Dr. Rebecca Sloan was the first to react. Her expression tightened, not with curiosity, but with irritation sharpened by pressure. "Who let her in here?" she said, her voice low and controlled, but edged with authority that did not tolerate disruption. One of the nurses stepped forward quickly, glancing toward Lily with discomfort. "She is the housekeeper's daughter, doctor. She has been sitting quietly." "Then she should remain quiet," Dr. Sloan replied, already turning back toward Ethan, dismissing Lily as if she were nothing more than background noise. "This is a critical situation." The machines answered her with a sharp, uneven rhythm. Ethan's heart rate flickered on the screen, unstable, unpredictable. Jonathan Hayes did not move. His gaze shifted from the monitors to the girl. There was something in his expression now. Not belief. Not yet. But not dismissal either. Something unsettled. Something searching. Lily felt it. The weight of his attention. The gravity of the room pressing down on her small frame. Her instinct told her to shrink back, to disappear into the corner where she belonged. But Ethan's chest rose again, too shallow, too fast. Wrong. It was still wrong. "You are missing it," Lily said, her voice trembling but steady enough to carry. "His breathing does not match the monitor. It is not lining up." A quiet scoff came from one of the younger doctors. "That is not possible," he muttered under his breath, though loud enough to be heard. "The equipment is calibrated." "Exactly," Lily replied, the words slipping out before fear could stop them. "That is why it does not make sense." The room paused again, just for a second, just long enough for doubt to flicker. Dr. Sloan straightened, turning fully toward Lily now, her eyes sharp. Assessing. "Listen to me," she said, each word deliberate. "We are dealing with a complex medical emergency. This is not the time for guesses." Lily swallowed, her fingers tightening around the notebook she still held. It felt heavier now, like it carried something more than paper. Like it carried responsibility. "It is not a guess," she said quietly. "His lips, they are not just pale. They are slightly gray. And his pupils," she hesitated, her voice catching for the first time. "They are not the same size." That landed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but it landed. Dr. Sloan's eyes flickered, just for a fraction of a second, toward Ethan, toward his face, toward something she had not been looking for. One of the nurses leaned in instinctively, her brow furrowing. "Doctor," she began, uncertain. "Check again," Lily said, a little stronger now, the fear beginning to give way to something else. Something steadier. "Please. You are treating the fever. But that is not what is causing this." The monitor beeped again. Louder this time. More urgent. Jonathan Hayes stepped forward. Just one step. But it changed the room. "Check," he said. The word was simple. Quiet. But it carried more authority than any command spoken so far. Dr. Sloan hesitated. It was brief. Almost invisible. But it was there. Years of certainty pressed against a single moment of doubt. Then she turned sharply. "Pupil response," she ordered. The nurse moved quickly, shining a small light into Ethan's eyes. The pause that followed stretched thin. "Doctor," the nurse said again, this time not uncertain, this time alarmed. "They are unequal." Silence. Real silence this time. The kind that does not belong in a room filled with machines. Dr. Sloan's expression changed. Not dramatically, not completely, but enough. Enough for everyone to feel it. Enough for the air to shift. She moved closer, her focus sharpening, recalculating. "Run a full neurological check," she said quickly. Now. The team moved. Faster. Different. No longer following the same path. No longer certain of the ground beneath them. Lily stood still, her heart racing, her breath shallow, her small voice echoing in a room that had never been meant to hear it. And for the first time since the chaos began, the direction changed. The shift was immediate, but not complete. Doubt had entered the room, yet authority still held its ground. Dr. Rebecca Sloan moved with sharper precision now, her earlier certainty replaced by something colder, more focused. "Prepare for neurological imaging," she said, her voice faster, tighter. "We need to rule out intracranial pressure." The words were clinical, controlled, but beneath them was urgency that had not been there before. The team responded without hesitation. Equipment was adjusted. New monitors were activated. The rhythm of the room changed, no longer confident, but reactive. Adapting. Correcting. Jonathan Hayes remained where he stood, his gaze no longer on the machines, but on the small girl who had shifted the entire direction of the room with a few quiet observations. He studied her now, not as background, not as invisible, but as something he could not yet define. Lily felt it again, that weight of attention, heavier now, more intense. Her instinct screamed at her to sit back down, to disappear into the silence she had been taught to live in. But the numbers on the screen had not stabilized. Not yet. Something was still wrong. She stepped forward. Just one step. It echoed louder than it should have on the polished floor. One of the nurses glanced at her, surprised that she had not been escorted out. No one stopped her. Not this time. Lily's eyes locked onto Ethan again. She watched his chest rise and fall, uneven, disconnected from the steady blinking of the monitor that claimed control. She listened to the pattern, not just the sound, but the space between each breath. Her grandfather's voice returned, clearer now. Patterns tell the truth. Machines only repeat what they are given. Lily's fingers loosened slightly around the notebook. She did not open it. She did not need to. The knowledge was already there, etched deeper than ink. It is not just pressure, she said, her voice quieter this time, but steady. There is something else. Dr. Sloan did not turn immediately. She was reviewing data on the screen, her eyes scanning rapidly, recalculating. Possibilities. We are already addressing multiple variables, she replied, her tone clipped. We cannot chase every theory. Lily took another breath. Her heart pounded harder now, but her voice did not break. His skin, she said. It is not just pale. It is changing. That made Dr. Sloan pause. Again. Smaller this time. But enough. What do you mean? The doctor asked, not turning fully, but no longer dismissing. Lily stepped closer, close enough now that the light from the monitors reflected faintly in her eyes. There is a tint, she said. It is not from fever. It is from something in his blood. One of the younger doctors frowned, stepping in. We have already run preliminary labs, he said quickly. There is no indication of, you did not look for the right thing, Lily said, the words coming faster now, more certain. You are looking for infection. But this is not infection. Silence pressed in again, the kind that grows heavier with each passing second. Dr. Sloan turned this time. Fully. Her eyes met Lily's, searching, measuring. Then what is it? She asked. The question was direct. No sarcasm. No dismissal. Just a demand for clarity. Lily hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second. Not from fear, but from the weight of being heard. Then she spoke. It is exposure, she said. Something he took in. Something that does not belong in his system. The room reacted instantly. Not with belief. Not yet. But with movement. The kind of movement that comes when a possibility cannot be ignored. Run a full toxicology panel, Dr. Sloan ordered, her voice sharp again, but different now. Not defensive. Decisive. The nurse moved quickly. Samples were taken. Commands were issued. The room accelerated, the air tightening with urgency. Jonathan Hayes took another step forward, closer now to the bed, his eyes flicking between his son and the girl who had forced this shift. Are you saying this was caused? He asked, his voice low, controlled, but carrying something deeper beneath it. Lily met his gaze for the first time. Directly. She did not look away. I am saying it did not start the way they think, she replied. The machines beeped again. Faster now. Sharper. Not. Worse. Not yet better. Just changing. And in that fragile space between certainty and chaos, the truth began to surface. The room no longer moved with confidence. It moved with urgency. A different kind of urgency. One that came not from control, but from uncertainty. The toxicology order rippled through the team, sharp and immediate. Vials were labeled. Samples were drawn. A machine near the far wall hummed to life, its sterile blue light cutting through the polished elegance of the penthouse like something out of place. This was no longer a controlled environment. It was a race. Dr. Rebecca Sloan stood still for half a second longer than necessary, her eyes fixed on the monitor as if willing the data to rearrange itself into something familiar. Something safe. But the numbers did not obey. They shifted. Subtle. Then sharper. Ethan's oxygen levels dipped again, just enough to tighten every chest in the room. We do not have time to wait for full lab results, one of the doctors said, his voice edged with concern. If this is exposure, we need to identify the source now. Agreed, Dr. Sloan replied, her voice firm again, but the certainty beneath it had changed. It was no longer built on assumption. It was built on recalculation. She turned slightly, her gaze landing once more on Lily. Not dismissive. Not skeptical. Evaluating. What did you see? She asked. The question carried weight now. It carried consequence. Lily felt it settle over her shoulders, heavier than anything she had carried before. She looked at Ethan again, her eyes tracing every detail, every shift, every inconsistency that had first caught her attention. The room seemed louder now, even in silence. Machines. Footsteps. Breathing. Time pressing forward, second by second. His hands, Lily said quietly. They are colder than the rest of his body. A nurse instinctively reached for Ethan's wrist, her brow tightening as she confirmed it. Peripheral temperature drop, she murmured. That could be circulation, another doctor added quickly. Or shock response. No, Lily said, shaking her head slightly, her voice gaining strength. It is not matching the rest of his symptoms. She stepped closer to the bed now, close enough to see the faint lines beneath Ethan's skin, the subtle discoloration that shifted under the light. It started before the fever, she added. That is why it does not fit. Dr. Sloane's eyes narrowed slightly. What do you mean before? Lily hesitated, her fingers tightening again around the notebook. Not from doubt. From memory. When I came in earlier, she said, he was already breathing differently. Slower. Like his body was trying to adjust to something. Jonathan Hayes leaned in slightly, his attention sharpening. Earlier, he repeated. How long ago? Lily glanced toward the large windows, where the city lights flickered far below, distant and indifferent. Maybe 30 minutes, she said, before anyone called the doctors. That landed harder than anything else. A gap. A window of time no one had accounted for. Dr. Sloane turned sharply. What did he have before the symptoms started? She asked, her voice cutting through the room. A staff member near the doorway froze, thinking. He had lunch, she said quickly. Prepared in-house. Same as usual. What specifically? Dr. Sloane pressed. Soup. Bread. Herbal tea, the staff member replied, her voice uncertain now under the intensity of the room. Lily's eyes flickered. Just for a second. Something clicked. Not loud. Not obvious. But enough. The tea, she said. The room stilled again. What about it? One of the doctors asked, his tone cautious now. Lily took a breath, her mind pulling together fragments, details, patterns that others had overlooked because they did not seem important. It smelled different, she said. Not strong. Just wrong. A faint crease appeared between Dr. Sloane's brows. That is not a medical conclusion, she said, though her voice lacked its earlier dismissal. It is a starting point, Lily replied, her gaze steady. Silence followed. Not disbelief. Not acceptance. Something in between. The kind of silence that forces people to reconsider what they thought they knew. Jonathan Hayes turned slowly toward the staff member. Bring me what he had, he said. His voice was calm, controlled, but beneath it was something new, something sharp. The staff member nodded quickly and moved, her footsteps quick against the polished floor. The machines continued their relentless rhythm. Not better, not worse. Waiting. Dr. Sloane exhaled slowly, her eyes returning to Ethan, then back to Lily. If you are right, she said quietly, we are not just treating a condition. Lily met her gaze without hesitation. No, she said. You are trying to find what caused it. And for the first time since the crisis began, the room was no longer just reacting. It was searching. The tray arrived faster than anyone expected. A quiet clatter of porcelain against silver echoed through the room as the staff member returned, her hands careful but trembling just enough to be noticed. The items were placed on a nearby glass table, their reflection sharp against the polished surface. A white bowl, a slice of bread, and a delicate porcelain cup, still half full. Steam no longer rose from it. Whatever warmth it once held had already faded, just like the certainty in the room. That is everything he had, the staff member said, her voice low, almost apologetic, as if the objects themselves had done something wrong. Jonathan Hayes stepped closer, his gaze fixed on the cup, not with curiosity, with focus, the kind of focus that built empires, the kind that now searched for something far smaller, far more precise. Dr. Rebecca Sloane moved in as well, her posture straight, controlled, but her eyes sharper than before. Do not touch anything yet, she said, raising a hand to stop the nurse who had instinctively reached forward. We assess first. Lily stood still for a moment, watching, listening. The room felt different now, less certain, more open. and that space allowed her voice to exist. She stepped closer again, slower this time, aware of every eye tracking her movement. She stopped just short of the table, her gaze settling on the cup. "That is the one," she said quietly. No hesitation. No doubt. Just certainty. Dr. Sloan glanced at her. "Based on what?" she asked, not dismissive, but demanding clarity. Lily leaned in slightly, her eyes narrowing as she focused on the faint details others might have missed. "The color," she said. "It is slightly off." One of the doctors frowned, stepping closer. "It looks normal," he said. Lily shook her head gently. "Not completely," she replied. "It should be lighter. Clearer." She pointed, her small finger steady. "There is a shadow at the bottom. It should not be there." The room leaned in with her. Not physically, but mentally. Attention narrowing. Focus sharpening. Dr. Sloan crouched slightly, bringing her eyes level with the cup. For a moment, she said nothing. Then her expression shifted. "Just enough." "There is residue," she said quietly. The words landed like a key turning in a lock. "Test it," Jonathan Hayes said immediately. No hesitation. No delay. The nurse moved quickly, retrieving a small sample kit from the medical cart. The liquid was drawn carefully, sealed, transferred. The machine near the wall accepted it with a soft mechanical hum, its lights flickering as it began to process. Seconds stretched, each one heavier than the last. No one spoke, not because they had nothing to say, but because the room had reached a point where words no longer helped. Only answers did. Lily stood still, her hands now resting at her sides, the notebook no longer clutched tightly. Her breathing slowed, her eyes never leaving Ethan. The machine still pulsed, still warned. But there was something else now. Direction. A path that had not existed before. Dr. Sloan straightened, her gaze shifting between the machine and Ethan, recalculating, adjusting, preparing for what might come next. "If this confirms exposure," she said, her voice measured, "we will need to act immediately." Jonathan Hayes did not respond. His eyes remained on the machine, as if he could will it to move faster. As if time itself could be negotiated. The machine beeped. A single, sharp sound that cut through the silence. Then another. The screen lit up, data populating rapidly, lines of information scrolling faster than most could read. But Dr. Sloan did not need long. Her eyes scanned, processed, understood. And then she froze. Not dramatically, not visibly to everyone, but enough. Enough for the shift to ripple outward. "Doctor," one of the nurses asked softly. Dr. Sloan did not look away from the screen. "There is a compound present," she said slowly. "Not consistent with anything we administered." The words settled heavily into the room. Jonathan Hayes stepped closer. "What kind of compound?" he asked, his voice controlled, but edged with something sharper now. Dr. Sloan exhaled once, her gaze still fixed forward. "A toxin," she said. Quiet. Precise. Final. The room did not react with panic. It reacted with realization. A single truth replacing every assumption that had come before. Lily closed her eyes for just a second. Not in relief. Not yet. But in confirmation. She had seen it. And now they saw it too. The word did not echo. It settled. Heavy. Final. A toxin. For a fraction of a second, the room seemed to forget how to move. Then everything accelerated. "We need identification now," Dr. Rebecca Sloan said, her voice cutting clean through the silence, sharper than before, stripped of hesitation. "Run a full-spectrum analysis. Cross-reference immediately." The machine responded with a rapid sequence of tones, processing deeper, faster. Lines of data multiplied across the screen, each one a piece of something unseen, now forcing its way into clarity. "We do not have time," another doctor added, his voice tight with urgency. "If this is a fast-acting compound, we are already behind." Jonathan Hayes stepped closer to the bed, his hand hovering just above Ethan's arm, not touching, as if even that small action required permission from a world that had suddenly become uncertain. His jaw tightened, the controlled calm he carried beginning to fracture at the edges. "Then do not wait," he said. "Act." Dr. Sloan did not look at him. Her focus remained locked on the data. "We cannot treat what we do not understand," she replied. Guessing could make it worse. Lily stood a few feet away, her eyes moving between the screen and Ethan, her mind pulling together pieces faster now, not from panic, but from pattern. Something about the way his symptoms progressed. The timing. The inconsistency between systems. It was not random. It never was. Her grandfather's voice returned again, steady, grounded. When something does not fit, it is because you are looking at it the wrong way. Lily stepped forward. The movement was no longer hesitant. It was deliberate. You do not need the exact name yet, she said. The room turned again. Not in surprise this time. In attention. Dr. Sloane's eyes shifted toward her, sharp, focused. Explain, she said. Lily took a breath, steadying herself, her gaze returning to Ethan. Look at how it is affecting him, she said. Not just what it is. One of the doctors frowned. That is what we are doing, he said, a trace of frustration slipping into his voice. Lily shook her head. No, she said softly. You are trying to match it to something you already know. She pointed gently toward Ethan, her hand steady. But this, it is attacking more than one system. His breathing, his circulation, his pupils. It is spreading. Silence followed. Not resistance. Consideration. Dr. Sloane's expression shifted again, her mind recalibrating in real time. A multi-system response, she murmured. Possibly neurotoxic. Yes, Lily said, her voice quiet but certain. And it is getting stronger. The monitor confirmed it. A slight drop. Then another. Not dramatic, but enough. Enough to shorten the time they had left. Dr. Sloane turned sharply to her team. We do not wait for full identification, she said. We stabilize the systems. Support respiration. Counter neuro impact. Her voice carried command again, but now it was different. Not absolute. Adaptive. The team moved instantly. Adjustments were made. New medications were prepared. The room shifted from searching to acting. Focused. Coordinated. Lily watched closely, her eyes following every movement, every decision. Something still pressed at the edge of her thoughts. Something not fully resolved. She looked back at the cup, at the faint residue still visible at the bottom. And then it clicked. Not loudly, not suddenly, but completely. It was not just in the tea, she said. The words cut through the motion. Dr. Sloane paused mid-instruction. What do you mean? Lily stepped closer to the table, her gaze fixed on the cup. The concentration is too uneven, she said. If it was only mixed in, it would be consistent. She looked back at Ethan. But his symptoms started before he finished drinking it. The room stilled again. A different kind of realization settling in. So it was introduced earlier, one of the doctors said slowly. Lily nodded. Yes, she said. The tea just made it worse. Jonathan Hayes turned sharply, his eyes narrowing. Something darker now moving beneath the surface of his control. Earlier how? He asked, his voice low, precise. Lily met his gaze without flinching. Before he even sat down, she said. The implication did not need to be spoken. It was already there. In the air. In the silence. In the way every person in the room suddenly became aware that this was no longer just a medical emergency. It was something else. Something intentional. The machines continued their steady rhythm. But now, every second carried a different weight. Because they were no longer just fighting time. They were uncovering truth. The air in the room changed again, but this time it was not driven by medicine. It was driven by realization. Not loud, not chaotic, but sharp, like a line drawn where none had existed before. Jonathan Hayes did not speak immediately. His eyes moved slowly across the room, not at the machines, not at the doctors, but at the people. Every staff member, every movement, every face. For the first time, the penthouse no longer felt like a place of control. It felt like a place where something had slipped through unseen. No one leaves, he said finally, his voice calm, measured, but carrying a weight that settled into every corner of the room. It was not a request. It was not a command that needed to be repeated. It simply existed. The staff near the doorway froze, exchanging quick, uncertain glances, but no one moved. Dr. Rebecca Sloane did not react to the shift in authority. Her focus remained on Ethan, on the monitors, on the narrowing window of time. We stay on the patient, she said firmly. Everything else comes after. But even she could feel it now. The undercurrent. The shift from accident to intent. Lily stood still, her small figure almost lost in the scale of the room, but her presence now impossible to ignore. Her eyes moved again, not just over Ethan, but over everything. The tray, the cart, the subtle details that had once been background and were now clues. Her mind did not race. It aligned. Quietly. Precisely. The way she had been taught. It was not random, she said softly. No one interrupted her this time. No one dismissed her. Even the machines seemed to fall into a rhythm that made space for her words. It was timed, she continued. The way it started, the way it spread, it was meant to look like something else first. Dr. Sloan glanced at her briefly, her expression unreadable, but listening. Explain, she said. Lily nodded slightly, her gaze returning to Ethan. The first symptoms were subtle, she said. Breathing changes. Small. Easy to miss. Then the fever. Then the neurological signs. She paused, her voice steady. It builds in layers. One of the doctors leaned in slightly, his earlier skepticism replaced by focus. That would delay detection, he said quietly. Lily nodded again. Yes, she said. It gives time for the real cause to hide. Silence followed, but it was not empty. It was full of understanding forming in real time. Dr. Sloan turned back to the monitors, her mind moving faster now, connecting what had been disconnected minutes ago. A stage progression, she murmured. Designed to mislead diagnosis. Jonathan Hayes exhaled slowly, the sound controlled but heavy. So someone planned this, he said. It was not a question. Lily did not answer immediately. She looked again at the cup, then at the tray, then at the small details around it. Her eyes narrowed slightly, focusing deeper. Not just planned, she said. Prepared. The word landed differently. Heavier. More deliberate. How do you know? Jonathan asked, his voice lower now, sharper. Lily stepped closer to the table, her fingers hovering just above the edge, not touching, but tracing the space. Because it needed access, she said. Close access. She glanced toward the kitchen entrance, then back to the tray. And timing. One of the staff members shifted slightly, almost imperceptibly. But in a room this tense, even the smallest movement echoed. Jonathan's eyes caught it instantly. Not with anger. Not yet. But with a tension that did not miss. Anything. Who prepared the meal? He asked, his voice cutting through the air. The question moved through the room like a current. The staff member near the door hesitated, then stepped forward slightly. It was prepared by the kitchen team, sir, she said carefully. Standard protocol. Who handled it last? Jonathan pressed. Her hesitation deepened. Just enough. Just long enough. Lily saw it. Not because she was looking for guilt, but because she was looking for truth. Her grandfather's voice echoed again, steady as ever. People show what they are trying to hide. You just have to watch. Lily's gaze softened slightly, not accusing, not confrontational, just observing. It is not about who made it, she said quietly. The room turned to her again. It is about who had the chance, she continued. Dr. Sloan did not interrupt. Neither did Jonathan. Because the direction had already shifted. This was no longer about possibility. It was about narrowing certainty. The machines continued their steady rhythm, each beep marking time that could not be wasted. But now, the room held two battles at once. One for Ethan's life, and one for the truth behind what had put it in danger. And in the center of both stood a girl who had been told to stay invisible. The silence did not break all at once. It fractured, slowly, under pressure. The kind of pressure that builds when truth begins to take shape but has not yet been fully revealed. Jonathan Hayes did not raise his voice. He did not need to. His presence filled the room in a way that made movement feel like a decision, not a reflex. Everyone stays exactly where they are, he said quietly, his eyes moving from one staff member to the next, measuring, weighing, seeing. This time, the command carried something different. Not just authority. Suspicion. The staff near the doorway stiffened, their posture tightening, their eyes lowering just enough to avoid direct attention. The polished calm that had defined the penthouse earlier had vanished. In its place was something sharper, something exposed. Dr. Rebecca Sloan remained focused on Ethan, her hands moving with renewed precision as adjustments continued, medications. Administered, system supported. His levels are stabilizing slightly, one of the nurses said, her voice careful, hopeful but restrained. The monitor reflected it. Not dramatic improvement, but a shift, a pause in the decline. It was enough to change the room, enough to give time, and time changed everything. Lily noticed it first, not the numbers, the people, the way one staff member stood slightly apart from the others, not by distance, by tension, a subtle rigidity in posture, a stillness that was too controlled. Her eyes moved to the tray again, then back to the staff. Patterns, always patterns. It was not random access, Lily said softly. The room turned toward her again, drawn not by surprise anymore, but by expectation. It was someone who knew exactly when to do it, she continued. Jonathan's gaze sharpened. Go on, he said. Lily stepped slightly to the side, aligning her view between the tray and the staff near the door. The timing had to match when he would drink it, she said. Not before, not too early, or it would show too soon. Dr. Sloan glanced briefly toward her, then back to Ethan, her mind processing both tracks at once. So whoever did this knew his routine, she said. Precisely, Lily replied. A faint shift rippled through the staff. Small, almost invisible, but not to Lily. One woman near the doorway adjusted her stance, her hands tightening slightly at her sides. Not enough for anyone else to notice, but enough. Lily's gaze settled there, not accusing, just still, watching, and they knew he would not question it, Lily added quietly. Jonathan followed her line of sight. Slowly, deliberately. His expression did not change, but something behind it did. Step forward, he said. The words were calm, controlled, but there was no space in them for hesitation. The woman froze for a fraction of a second. Then she stepped forward, measured, careful. Her uniform was immaculate, her expression composed, but her breathing was just slightly faster than the stillness around her. You serve the tea? Jonathan asked. Yes, sir, she replied, her voice steady, but not as steady as before. Dr. Sloan did not look away from Ethan, but her attention. Split, listening now, aware that the answer unfolding might matter as much as the treatment itself. Lily watched closely, not the words, the pauses, the microseconds between them. Did you prepare it? Jonathan continued. The woman shook her head quickly. No, sir. It came from the kitchen. Lily stepped forward again, just slightly, enough to shift the space. But you carried it, she said. The woman's eyes flickered. Just once. But it was enough. Yes, she said. Lily tilted her head slightly, her voice still soft, but now precise. And you were the last person near it before he drank it. Silence followed. Not empty. Pressurized. The kind of silence that forces truth closer to the surface. The woman's composure held. Almost. That is standard procedure, she said carefully. Lily nodded. Yes, she said. But today something changed. Jonathan took a step closer, his presence now unmistakable, unavoidable. What changed, he asked. The woman hesitated. Longer this time. Just enough. Lily did not look away. You were watching him, she said quietly. Not like staff watch. Like you were waiting. The room held its breath. The machines continued their steady rhythm, but now they sounded distant. Secondary. Because in this moment, the truth was no longer hidden. It was standing in the room, waiting to be spoken. The silence stretched just a second too long. Long enough for the truth to settle into every corner of the room. Long enough for denial to become impossible. The woman did not move at first. Her posture remained composed, her expression controlled, but something beneath it had shifted. A fracture. Small, but visible to anyone who knew where to look. Lily did not speak again. She did not need to. The pattern had already revealed itself. Jonathan Hayes took one final step forward, his presence now close enough to erase any distance between power and consequence. Answer the question, he said quietly. No anger, no raised voice, just certainty. The woman's lips parted slightly, then pressed together again, as if weighing something that no longer had weight. Her eyes flickered once more, not toward Jonathan, not toward the doctors, but toward the tray, toward the cup, toward the truth she could no longer separate herself from. I followed instructions, she said finally, her voice lower now, thinner than before. The words did not echo. They sank. Dr. Rebecca Sloan did not turn, but her hand slowed for half a second, just enough to acknowledge the shift. Jonathan's gaze did not waver. From who, he asked. The question landed heavier than any before it. Because this was no longer about uncertainty. It was about origin. The woman hesitated again, longer this time, her composure unraveling not in panic, but in the quiet realization that the structure she relied on had already collapsed. I was told it was a supplement, she said. Something to help him focus. To improve performance. A faint, disbelieving breath escaped from one of the doctors. That is not a supplement, he muttered under his breath. Lily remained still, her eyes soft, not accusatory, not harsh. Just steady. You did not question it, she said quietly. The woman shook her head, almost imperceptibly. I was told it was approved, she replied. That it was safe. Jonathan exhaled slowly, the sound controlled, but heavy with something deeper now. Not just anger. Disappointment. And you believe that, he said. It was not a question. The woman did not answer. She did not need to. The answer was already there. In the silence. In the way her shoulders had lowered just slightly, as if the weight she had been carrying had finally found its place. The machines continued their steady rhythm, but now the sound was different. Less frantic. More stable. One of the nurses glanced at the monitor, her eyes widening slightly. His oxygen is improving, she said. Dr. Sloan stepped in immediately, her focus snapping fully back to Ethan. Maintain current support, she ordered. Adjust dosage gradually. We are stabilizing. The word carried something new. Not hope. Not yet. But progress. Real. Measurable. The room shifted again, but this time it was quieter. More grounded. The urgency remained, but it was no longer chaotic. It was directed. Purposeful. Lily let out a slow breath she did not realize she had been holding. Her hands rested loosely at her sides now. No longer gripping the notebook, no longer bracing against fear. She looked at Ethan. His breathing had changed. Still fragile. Still uneven. But different. Better. Jonathan Hayes turned toward her slowly. Not as a man looking at a child. Not as a billionaire looking at someone beneath him. But as someone trying to understand something he could not measure. How did you see it, he asked. The question was simple, but it carried everything. Lily met his gaze, her expression calm, her voice soft. I listened, she said. Jonathan's brow tightened slightly. To what? Lily glanced briefly at the machines, then back at Ethan, then finally back at him. To what did not match, she said. Silence followed. Not heavy this time. Not tense. Just still. The kind of silence that comes when something true has been spoken and does not need to be explained further. Dr. Sloan glanced over briefly, her expression no longer guarded, no longer distant. There was something else there now. Recognition. Respect. Not spoken, but clear. The room, once defined by hierarchy and distance, had shifted into something else entirely. A place where truth had not come from status. Not from degrees. Not from power. But from observation. From courage. From a voice that had been told to stay invisible, and now could never be unseen.